Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson, and with me, fresh from the locker room of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my co-host, Garrett Ballard. Garrett, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It was a great week last week. I got to experience my first time in an NFL locker room and in an NFL press box. Buccaneers are great hosts. The hospitality was amazing. Couldn't have asked for a better Sunday.
Yeah, are you literally living the dream right now? Because I feel like you are.
Look, all I'm saying is that Sunday, got to go to the stadium to cover the game as a media member. Today, I get followed on Twitter by none other than the Buck Nasty. It's been a great couple days.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. I've never even been to Raymond James Stadium, let alone
it's a
up
good
in the
time.
press box. That's crazy.
You know, it's a bit different because I am a Bucs fan, and the number one rule of press boxes is you cannot cheer. But it's not like there's a problem for me not to cheer, but it's just different. Like I've grown up my whole life going to games, cheering for them in the stands, and then here I am just trying to do it professionally, and it's a bit of a different setting, but I love it. It was a dream come true.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways from my history degree was everyone has bias, and being aware of your bias is what makes you from falling victim to it. So it's okay to be a Bucs fan and cover the Bucs. Same with any team. Just you have to look at them objectively. If they throw a terrible pass, you have to say they throw a terrible pass. And if they do something great, I mean, inside you can cheer your heart out. And that's what makes it fun. It's football. It's a game. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I think honestly, looking at it from an objective perspective, this and also the NFL draft, so I'm not looking at my favorite college team with blinders on, has really helped me become a really pretty well-rounded football fan because you can see things for what it is and not, oh, it wasn't that bad, or oh, he threw the interception because the receiver or just some BS that fans come up with. I'm guilty of it. Every fan's probably guilty of it at some point, but being objective helps with that a lot. And it's honestly a treat to be able to watch football and just, watch football. You're not thinking of, oh, I really hope they win. You're like, man, this is a lot. This is a really interesting time, and there's so many angles I can take this. There's so many angles I can write this story for. I wonder, it's a whole different thought process, but I love it. It's a great time.
Side note, the objective perspective, great future podcast name.
That's true. That is a very good point. That's very, very good. Look at JT coming up with stuff on the spot. We love it.
We just create content out of nowhere. Well, let's talk about the Bucs game because that's the content that people want to hear about.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay gets off to, a little bit of a slow start in the first quarter, but it felt like they controlled this game 75% of the way up until the fourth quarter where it got a little close for comfort.
Yeah. I'm just going to come out the gate, say why I think that happened. Opening the game, the Bucs did what we talked about a lot of, supplementing the run game with short passes to your running backs, both Lenny and Rachaad White. Lenny was the leading receiver on the team on Sunday. They were able to get him involved in the short passing game, and it boosted the offense. Now, again, there are troubles in the red zone. There are troubles at the very start of games, but that's something they'll have to work on. But to see the improvements in driving the ball more consistently, not getting stopped as often on first down, setting themselves up for third and longs is a good sign. In the fourth quarter and the third quarter, they started running the ball more. They started handing the ball off to Lenny. They started handing the ball off to Rachaad White, who, by the way, did a great job in short yardage situations. Perfect third down back right there, Rachaad White. But it just didn't work. We started going slow. 3 and outs started coming up. And it was just a bad design for the second half. And they needed to get back to that more high-powered style of offense. Because, look, people are like, oh, Brady's arm, he can't throw 75 times a game. You're right. But if a good chunk of those throws are just little dump-offs, that's not going to blow up your arm. So,
sure. And I think back to the Saints offense with Drew Brees.
Yes.
Not that last year where his arm was just out of gas, but the couple of years leading up to that where you could tell he was getting older, but they were still a dynamic offense. That's what they did. There was a lot of short passes to Alvin Kamara. It was quick hitters to Mike Thomas, slant man himself. That's how you can be a running team, and not just be a running team. Those screens, those quick hitters to the running back, those are extensions of the running game. Shameless plug, wrote an article about this past week on Bucs Report. Go check it out, how the Buccaneers can become a running offense. But that's what I talked about. Those quick hitters to Leonard Fournette, those screens to Chris Godwin. How many times have we seen just pop it out to Godwin right off the snap? He picks up 7-8 yards on first down. Yep. That's how you do it. It can't just be downhill running. This is not the Titans with Derrick Henry. Those days are largely gone. You don't see a lot of Sean Alexanders in the league anymore for a reason. This is how it has to be. And you talked about it last week. You predicted a running back would be the leading receiver on the team. A different running back, but a running back nonetheless. Yep. And that's the blueprint. And if they don't do that, we've seen it. The offense sputters.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better. I don't want to get too much into the how the Bucs can become a running team because that's your article, but I do want to say play action into dump offs to running backs absolutely opens up the run game. Absolutely. People think, okay, you got to run the ball to open up the pass game. No, you don't. You got to run the ball to open up play action. No, you don't. People will bite for play action. It's a creative way to run your offense. And if you're able to utilize it so it opens up both your run game and passing concepts down the field, it's a win. That's absolutely a win. And that's how the Bucs should be operating their offense.
Oh, yeah. Rule of thumb for me, no team uses play action enough. No team uses motion enough.
I agree.
Except for maybe Andy Reid and the Chiefs, because he's maybe the brightest offensive mind in the last 20 years.
Yep. I agree.
But that's kind of been my snag with Brian Leftwich. It's kind of run at you. It's a lot of vanilla. You know what to expect. Oh, they're under center. Probably a handoff to Leonard Fournette. Oh, they're in shotgun. They're probably going to pass it. You can't be that predictable.
There's another real quick thing I want to say. You saying King Henry kind of brought it to the forefront of my mind. But Leonard Fournette sometimes thinks he's Derrick Henry, and then sometimes he thinks he's Saquon Barkley. I'm vividly remembering a 4th and 1, I'm pretty sure early in the first quarter, where they handed off to Leonard Fournette. There was easy push to get the yardage in the middle of the offensive line. He decides to take a little stutter step and go left, gets blown up. I don't know why he did that. The running lane was clear. You just got to put your head down and jump forward because the offensive line was at the line to gain, and you decided to twinkle toes yourself to the left and run into the edge setter, which did his job. He set the edge. He kept them from getting the line to gain and turnover on downs. That was very frustrating to me. I think that Leonard Fournette needs to kind of embrace his identity of he's a downhill runner. He needs to just stop with all the try to get fancy stuff. I sound like a boomer here, but it's true. Like he just needs to go straight. One cut back.
And what's the point of having a 280-pound running back if he's not going to plow through the line of scrimmage when he needs to?
Exactly.
Especially on a rep where your rookie, Luke Gadecki, he beat Grady Jarrett on that rep. He didn't beat him bad, but he got enough to get that first down. That was a good rep from Luke Gadecki.
Definitely.
That should have been a first down if Leonard Fournette just hadn't stopped and looked at the back of his offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. He didn't even have to look. He just needed to run straight. Yep. They literally got to go, all right, Lenny, you just follow your blockers. You just run straight behind Luke. That's all they got to do.
And I don't do this often because, it's 99.9% of the time not true. But I could have run forward at a wall and used my body weight to pick up that first down. And I would have broken every bone in my body, but I would have got that first down.
You might be right. There's a good chance you're right.
So I think you touched on it. I think you really hit the nail on the head. Early on, they struggled for those reasons. Late in the game, they struggled for the reasons. In the middle, it looked good. It
looked great.
I liked a lot of what the offense was doing.
Yeah, it looked awesome. I'm trying to think. Kate Otten, man, what a game! You said it last week. What a game for Kate Otten. That was a real coming out party for Kate Otten, and we couldn't be happier. I think if you haven't seen it yet, Cam Brate is not what he once was. He's definitely lost a step athletically, and he's been dropping a little bit. And he has a concussion. You never really want to mess with head injuries. I know he hasn't. It wasn't super severe, but um, this game should have easily been the K-Dot, you're now our starter at tight end game, because not only can he block, we now know he can catch. Uh, there couldn't be a better transition game for that than this one.
And I think the best part about what the offense did, particularly with K. Dotton and the running backs, it's incredibly sustainable. Nothing about that is hard or complicated, or you don't have to have the right matchup to make it work, or these things won't work against better teams. That's always going to be there if you just flip it out to the running back, and maybe he won't get 10 every time. Maybe sometimes he'll get 6, and then it's 2nd and 4, and that's okay. That's better than 2nd and 9.
Yep.
And these are just basic things that really should always be a staple of this offense. And it was really nice to see it this week, and I hope we continue to see more of it in the future.
Yeah, I think the rookies as a whole in this game were phenomenal. I mean, I wrote an article on it for Sports Talk Florida, but K. Dotton was good. Rashad White, again, crucial in 3rd and shorts. He really carved out a nice 3rd down role for himself that game. Zion McCollum got his first playing time, albeit very limited. Who else am I forgetting? Logan Hall had a sack. And of course, Luke Gadecki has been just starting since week 1. So this was like the first game where we got to see each of our rookies play, and they all made an impact, like a pretty decent one, I'd say. And that's promising to see.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the Bucs such a great team right now is Jason Light and his ability to draft.
Yeah.
Logan Hall was a guy I was very critical of coming out, but he's really hit the ground running, and he's been a really nice addition to this defensive line. And part of that is Todd Bowles and the way this defense has used him, not trying to plug him in at a 3-tech. They've let him be him. They've let him be an athlete, and he's developing before our eyes, and it's really nice to see. Same with K. Dotton, kind of coming to age before our eyes. All these guys are valuable pieces. Maybe none are a superstar, but if you get a quality pass rusher in Logan Hall on the defensive line, a quality running back who can catch the ball and run the ball, a starting guard, those are huge additions to any team.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the year, staying on the Logan Hall kind of side of things, we were expecting him to just be pretty much a full-time rotational player because of Akeem Hicks. Well, Akeem Hicks goes down, Logan Hall's thrusted into a more heavy, like a more prevalent role, and he has 2 sacks in 5 weeks. I mean, that's great. I mean, you take that, multiply it by 3. He's got 6 sacks in 15 games from an interior defensive line position. That's top notch. That's some top notch stuff, and you really can't ask for more. I think he's been playing some phenomenal football, and the coaches think so too. So,
especially for a guy who is billed as more athlete than technician.
Yeah,
and this is the worst version of Logan Hall we'll see probably for the next 10 years because he's only going to get better with more experience.
Hope so. Another guy, not a rookie, who everyone was like, this guy's got traits for days. Just got to put it together. Joe Tryon Shoyinka. What a game from my guy. I need a jersey. That was the breakout game. I'm pulling it up right now. Where's the share screen? Present. Share screen. Chrome tab. Here we go. The sack. He's right over here against Jake Matthews, probably their best offensive lineman over the years. Probably not anymore, but step inside, spin, boom. Got him to overset. Watch. Gonna play it again.
Oh, you'd love to see it.
Oh my gosh. And then
Shades of Dwight Freeney right there.
Oh my goodness, man. Oh, what a beautiful play. I could not have been happier to see that. I was like, if there was a moment that I was going to cheer, it was that one, because y'all know how much I've been pounding the table for Joe Tryon Shoyinka, and to see him finally put it together, almost get a strip sack in a later play. Amazing. Top off the day. The win plus that, what a day. That was great. That made me so happy. But yeah, the guy's a stud. He's going to be good. So
yeah, JTS was great this game. That sack on not Caleb McGarry, who is just a terrible. Well, I don't want to go say he's not good.
He's
I don't want to be too over the top, but he is not a good NFL starter.
Yeah.
But that was Jake Matthews. He didn't even beat the bad one. He beat Jake Matthews, who was decent. He's solid. He's okay.
Yep.
And he just whiffed right around him a couple of times. He had that sack, the near strip sack on Mariota that led to kind of a fluttering incompletion.
Yep.
And a few plays prior to this, he blew up a running play way in the backfield, and he didn't get the tackle, but he was the first man in there. He just ran right past Matthews, got in the backfield. The he just kind of almost got the tackle. He just kind of slipped out of his arms, and then Antoine Winfield Jr. came in and hammered the ball carrier because he was just standing still from Joe Tryon-Schwenka.
Absolutely. It was a great. I'm trying to find the other play. Let's see if I can. Yeah, here it is. Here's the one that you were just talking about. I'm going to pull it up. Give me a quick second. Share. Shout out Greg Almond for all these clips, by the way. Y'all know Greg. He's great. So, again, up here, Jake Matthews is this guy. This is the tight end. I think probably Parker Hesse. Just goes straight through him. The running back. That's probably their fullback. Just can't even do anything. You see him pulling here. He's in motion, coming across, trying to hit the block, and just whiffs. Like he just gets in just the burst, the speed off the line of scrimmage, and that allows Winfield, like you said, to come up and make that tackle. So
yeah, that back had to make like a 5-yard bubble backwards to try and avoid that tackle.
Yeah, I can't seem to find the near strip sack, but that's okay. Y'all get the point. He had a great game on Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. It was a lot of the young guys. There was a couple of coming out parties. JTS, K-Dot, and this was a really promising game for some foundational players. And again, I don't know if any of these guys are superstars. Maybe I think JTS has that potential. But really solid games from really solid contributors you want down the line.
Definitely. I mean, it was a very, very promising game from the perspective of building for the future. Because a lot of people are like, oh, the Bucs are just super old. Once Tom Brady leaves, they're cooked because they're all ancient. But this was a nice game to kind of give hope for the next generation of Bucs players that they can pick up the slack. So, it was super fun. I want to talk a little bit about that fourth quarter, specifically the back-to-back, or not back-to-back, there's a punt between, but the near back-to-back scoring drives that the Falcons had. The defense looked flat. I don't think there's two ways about it. I think Mariota kind of killed them with his legs. There was a quote going around from Devin White saying that they got bored, and you could kind of see it. Given I did ask that question, and my question was, what were y'all doing on the sideline to lock back in? And then he kind of just took it his own direction, which is fine. He can answer it how he sees fit. But I don't know if coming out and saying the defense got bored because we were just shutting them down all game was necessarily promising. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a little bit concerning to me because I think it's kind of a comment that shows immaturity. And a lot of the stars on this Buccaneers defense are either pretty young or they're kind of quiet. Levante David, a leader in the locker room, no question. Yep. He's more a lead it by example kind of guy.
Yep.
Shaq Barrett comes off as kind of the same way.
Despite his comments about the Chiefs' offensive line.
That seriously was like the first thing I'd ever heard him say to the media.
Right?
It's like, Shaq, just go back under the rock. We don't need to.
Yeah, literally, just go and sack people. That's all we need it for.
But our loud guys are guys like Devin White, Antoine Winfield Jr. Those are the guys in the middle of the huddle getting you hyped up, and those are young guys, and you love to see it. You love to see that fire and that passion.
The energy's great, yeah.
But it really made me think how this team is missing a guy like JPP and his presence in the locker room, that maturity, that dog element, that been there, done that, knows what it takes.
Yeah, my friends after the game, I was looking at my phone. They were like, I miss JPP because like that guy was. I mean, you can't get a better leader for a defense. I mean, he was the heart and soul of that locker room, that defensive locker room, and just an elite leader, despite his waning talents. But there's no questioning his mental mental impact on that defense.
Yeah, and it's hard to find a guy like that.
Yeah.
Those guys don't grow on trees. I think the term, a player is a dog is overused because, you see the dog x-rays on Twitter and it's like every player is a dog.
Yeah.
But guys like that matter.
JPP is a dog, man.
He's legitimately like,
yeah.
You mind your P's and Q's around him. You don't want to put your toes out of line because he's going to check you hard.
Absolutely. You love to see it, but hope JPP's doing well. But the defense was, I was like the entire game, I was like, this is a great bounce back from the Chiefs game. And I was like, part of it might be because Kyle Pitts wasn't playing. But again, they were just shutting everyone down. They weren't letting anything slide. They were like no scoring. The closest they got, Younghoe Koo missed the kick. They were doing great. And then the second half rolls around and Atlanta gets a bit energy. Arthur Smith was doing his thing. Thought he coached as good of a game as he could in that second half. And if it wasn't for I hate to say, but being honest, bogus roughing the passer call on Tom Brady, the Bucs might have gone to overtime that game. By the way, when they got the 2-point conversion and I saw 15 on that scoreboard, I was like, no way. I was like, no way. I was like, if the Bucs score here, I'm going to be the happiest person ever.
What kind of madman would pick the other team to score 15?
I know.
Only on this podcast.
Unfortunately, 21-15, I was a touchdown shy, but.
You know where it really felt like the game turned, though, where Atlanta's offense started moving the ball? And I don't know if it's exactly the correlation. Carlton Davis went out, I think, towards the end of the third quarter.
Yep.
And I felt like that's where Atlanta got their momentum. And we had talked about it last week, how Carlton Davis thrives in a matchup like this versus a guy like Drake London, where he's big and physical, because Carlton Davis can out-big and out-physical basically any receiver in this league. Once he went out, I don't know if that was like losing a leader kind of thing, because Davis, he comes off as kind of quiet, but he has a quiet intensity about him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was losing the leadership or just losing a really good corner, but it felt like that's when the defense kind of lost their edge in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it correlates time-wise for sure. I mean, they didn't score touchdowns until the fourth quarter. So timeline, it fits. I think Carlton Davis is definitely one of the leaders of that locker room. I mean, he was the guy that coined the grave diggers for the secondary against Michael Thomas in that Super Bowl run. But it was, I don't know, there was definitely some energy sucked out. And then, of course, Sean Murphy-Bunting got hurt right after. Mike Edwards went down. The secondary was getting beat up. So I think they might have been a little bit demoralized because they were seeing their guys get hurt that they play with, they know are great. Luckily, I don't think any of them are super serious. Everyone's fine for the most part. But yeah, that was a very interesting observation that makes a little bit of sense.
And I don't want to give that all of the justification because Devin White himself said they lost focus, and that front seven was still intact, and they were getting run on down the stretch.
Yeah.
So
especially I do recall I asked Devin White what they like. Mariota was just running all over the place. He was their leading rusher, especially in the second half. But I was like, were y'all spying him or what were y'all doing? And he was like, we were kind of just playing our game, and then he started running everywhere, so we had to put one on him like late in the game. But in that intermediate where they were scoring, Mariota on the ground was a big factor for them.
And that's something he can do, despite Mariota's flaws and his shortcomings as a former number 2 overall pick. He's always been a dynamic runner.
Yep. Agreed.
Let me ask you about the other quarterback in this game.
Sure.
Tom Brady statistically had a great game, over 350 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. He also had a couple of passes that made me maybe hold my breath a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A couple near interceptions, a couple underthrown Scotty Miller deep balls. What did you think of Tom Brady's concern, or what did you think of this game? Are you concerned at all? A little bit of a chink in the armor, or is it just maybe a shoulder injury? A couple of bad passes don't define him, certainly. But where are you at with Tom Brady after this game?
I mean, I'm unmoved. I think Tom Brady, again, I mean, he said the shoulder was fine after the game, so I don't think it's a shoulder. He was very precise after the game. People were asking questions. He said, "Yep." When someone asked him about his shoulder, he said, "It feels good," and that was it. Like, he was very clearly not happy with his performance, not happy with the team's performance, and was definitely ready to leave it behind and move on to the next game. I don't think it'll be anything to worry about. I think this is just one of those, every now and then there's a Tom Brady game where we're like, not his best. Is he still good? And then he comes out and throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't really see anything to worry about unless he starts chaining these games together. So,
yeah, I certainly don't think that this is last year Peyton Manning, last year Drew Brees. Tom Brady, even at 45, I think is still far superior to that.
I mean, we've seen him make the throws this season. Like that throw, there was the throw to Mike Evans when he was wide open, got pushed out the one. That was a dot. I mean, earlier in the season, the throw to Brashad Perriman against the Saints, that was a dime. Like, that thing was like he gets very clearly still has the arm talent. But it might have been just one of those games, one of those halves.
It might have been. But it's certainly, when you have a 45-year-old quarterback, I think every moment you're waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And seeing those Scotty Miller deep balls, which I think both of them would have been touchdowns if Brady hits him, seeing both of those underthrown made me hold my breath a little bit, like, oh, is it happening? Is this the drop off the cliff? And I don't think it is. And like you said, we've seen him make those throws. He had some great throws in this game. I'm highlighting, a couple of the bad ones, but he had some great throws in this game. But it made me for the first time aware of really how old Tom Brady is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, being 45, playing in the National Football League is something that very few can say. And there's only one person who can say that he was doing it at this high of a level. And that's obviously Tom Brady. So it wouldn't shock me if he's just getting a bit tired. Like, if he's just like, man, I'm not going to talk about off the field stuff, but there's probably some stuff going on that just taking a toll mentally as well. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to, but it's just, there's a lot going on for Tom, including potential decrease in play, but I'm not too worried about that yet. So.
I have to say it again, just because Tom Brady is remarkable in that way.
Yep, he is.
I mean, I've questioned this year if Matthew Stafford is done, and Matthew Stafford is like 15 years younger than Tom Brady. 45 is an insane age to be playing football for even a kicker, someone you can't touch. And I think after this week, people will joke that you can't touch Tom Brady either. But what he's doing is nothing short of incredible. Like,
truly,
we gawk at Lamar Jackson and how electric he is, and Patrick Mahomes, and the different arm slots and arm talent he has, and Josh Allen, he can run over a linebacker in a very different way. Tom Brady is every bit as amazing of an athlete as those guys, just in terms of his longevity to play the game the way he does.
Yeah, I can't say athlete, I'll say football player. Because when athlete's fair, but whenever I hear athlete, or like, I instantly think of like athleticism, and that's just something I do in my head. But I know what you're saying. But,
think of it as like a long distance jogger versus a short sprinter.
Yeah,
he's not moving that fast, but he will never stop jogging.
You're right. You are right. Anything else you want to touch on from the Falcons game?
No, I thought it went largely according to how I expected it to. I thought it would be a fairly comfortable win, but it'd be more.
You thought there wouldn't be the defensive lapses.
Yeah, I thought that fourth quarter would be less than what it was.
Yep.
But I thought the Falcons would make it look a little bit more competitive because it was a division game for the lead in the South. I thought they'd be pesky. And I didn't expect that all to come in the fourth quarter, but at the end of the day, it kind of was what I expected it to be.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good way to close on it. But This coming week, we have a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are coming off a loss. It was a big one. They got destroyed by the Bills. Obviously, the Bills, one of the more talented offenses in the game, like you said, just talk about Josh Allen. But the Steelers got hammered. They got destroyed. What are your initial thoughts coming into this game?
I have two initial thoughts. Number one, Mike Tomlin is a really, really good coach. And coming off of this kind of embarrassing loss, you know he's going to have his team ready to go, playing their best, going back home. Number two, this offense is absolutely putrid. The offensive line is a mess. A rookie quarterback who, frankly, I don't think is any good. And receivers, there's talent there, but it's not upper level talent. And all these guys are flawed. You know, Deontay Johnson's a guy who can get open, but he drops a lot of passes. Juju Smith-Schuster, who's always been kind of a fun player.
He's from Kansas City.
Chase Claypool. I'm thinking of Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool.
You know, he's a fun player, big-time athlete. He's never been a great separator. He's never really lived up to that promise of his athletic ability. George Pickens, the new guy out of Georgia, can make some incredible catches. Just absurd body control. We saw one last week, just Odell Beckham-esque catches consistently. Another guy who can't really separate. So there's some exciting playmakers, but overall, I think all of those guys are flawed in different ways, and this offense is just not good.
I agree. Everything you said, I agree with. If the Bucs want to get a get-right game, they feel a bit slighted by the comments the media has been making about what they're saying. This would be the game to do it. They can theoretically tee off on both the offensive line, and the corners can get right, get some picks, get some balls, passes defended against these receivers who they will be stuck to because, like you said, they're not great at separating. Deontay Johnson's the best separator by far. So he'll be, I think, have a big game for them, like a relatively big game. But I have no faith in Kenny Pickett to lead this offense right now. So
Deontay Johnson, proud MAC alumni.
Yes.
But the biggest thing for me, even worse than Kenny Pickett, who just I don't think is physically extremely talented, the offensive line. It all starts up front, every team, and this team is a mess. After they drafted a running back in the first round and now a quarterback in the first round, the most recent draft, they have no one to block for these guys. I have the list up of their offensive line. How many of their offensive line starters can you name?
Okay, so wow.
I'm throwing this at you out of nowhere. But
I know
you are, I think, more educated than the average fan. So I question how many offensive line starters could someone name from this unit?
Okay. Dan Moore? Is it Dan Moore?
Yes, that is one. Left tackle.
Dan Moore, yep. Is that what's his name? Chuk. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna butcher it. What is it?
I think it's Chukwuma Okorafor.
Okorafor, that's it. I couldn't remember his last name.
I believe he went to Western Michigan.
I think you're right. I remember scouting him. At least
Gross Bronco.
Couldn't remember his name.
But he is their starting right tackle.
Dan Moore, Chukwuma Okorafor. Oh my gosh, I know an interior guy too, because I kind of like them coming out.
Yeah, I'm looking at him, and I bet I can tell the one that you.
Is it another Moore?
Nope, we're out of Moores.
I can't remember. Give me the final three.
So the interior is Kevin Dotson.
I knew Kevin Dotson.
Yep, that's the one I was thinking you knew.
Yeah.
Mason Cole.
Yeah, no.
And James Daniels.
I also knew James Daniels. I could have gone 4 for 5. Tough.
So I think half of this line was drafted in the last 2 or 3 years.
And I don't think highly.
No. Dotson drafted in the 4th. Moore drafted in the 4th. Cole Mason, I think he was Mason Cole, I think was undrafted.
He might have been.
I think he went to Michigan. I think he went late if he got drafted at all. But this is not a good offensive line.
Yep.
There's no one guy you look at.
He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Cardinals.
Was he drafted in the 3rd? So this is his 3rd team since he was drafted, because he also played for the Vikings last year.
Yep.
So
he got cut by the Vikings after the season, or signed a 1-year deal, I don't know, and then signed a deal with the Steelers this offseason.
So he was drafted high, but he's on his 3rd team in 2 years, so not great.
3rd team in 3 years. Or no, he was drafted in 2018.
Was he 18? Was it that long ago already?
18. So 3rd team, yeah, 2nd team in 2 years.
Wow, I'm getting old. I feel like he was just drafted.
Well, technically just 3rd team in 3 years because he was on the Cardinals in 2021 or 2020. So
no, not a ringing endorsement.
No.
Anyone who played on the Bears offensive line recently, not good.
Yes, the 2 worst units in the league, probably up there with the Panthers also. But yeah, this is needs to be a big game from the D line. If they can't produce against this unit, they got to have a. I mean, we saw him produce against better units. We saw him produce against this Falcons line, who's been good this year. We saw him get there against the Saints. We saw them get there against the Cowboys. Like, everyone's been doing what they need to do up until this point. They just got to keep it going against a bad unit. Looking for another big JTS game. Looking for another big Logan Hall game. Should just be a fun night for the defensive line, theoretically. And in turn, the linebackers.
Yeah, and you talk about it in like more of a pass rush perspective. This should be a game where they dominate the run.
Oh, yeah.
And, we talked about the Falcons line last week wasn't great, but they are also a really effective running team, part of that with Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the between the tackle stuff, the traditional kind of running back stuff, the Bucs did pretty well against. And I know Algier had, a good run or two that went for like 10 or 12 yards.
Right.
I think Najee Harris this week should be absolutely smothered. This team doesn't have a Chris Lidstrom or even a Jake Matthews, really. This offensive line is as bad as there is in the league.
Their best offensive lineman would be the worst on the Bucs.
Yes. And so that's Luke Gedeke, I think, right now.
Right now, yeah.
I would not trade him for any of these guys.
Nope, I wouldn't either. I definitely would not.
So this is the game where Vita Vea, Will Golston
had a good game against the Falcons. Vita.
Yeah, definitely. It was a bounce back game for him from some of the games we saw earlier this year. Had a sack in this game, always a plus. I think.
Also, I want to make a quick note. Vita Vea's sack and Grady Jarrett's sack that was called roughing the passer. The one that he had on Marcus Mariota where he kind of just chucked him to the ground. The same.
Yeah.
So.
Not that Atlanta would have won the game because I don't really think they were ever close to winning it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got robbed on that play.
Yeah.
But this is a game where those guys should dominate. And thus Devin White and Levante David should dominate because if their defensive line's doing their job, they're running clean. So they'll be making a bunch of tackles. The defensive tackles will be making a bunch of tackles. This is an offense that will in theory, will struggle.
Yep. I agree. We've really covered it all from the offensive and defensive perspective for the Bucs, or the defensive perspective for the Bucs. What do you think about the Steelers' defense currently?
Currently is an interesting word because I'm looking at the injury report from practice today.
Yep.
Minkah Fitzpatrick did not practice. That's good for the Bucs.
Very good.
3 corners aside, because Fitzpatrick's a safety. 3 corners: Cameron Sutton, Levi Wallace, Akil Witherspoon, did not practice yesterday. Only Levi Wallace practiced today on a limited basis, and he's in concussion protocol.
Yep.
So, as right now, this defense has no secondary.
Right.
If this group gets healthy by game day, which is coming up fast, then I think this defense is nothing to laugh at. There's talent here. I think Alex Highsmith is a nice young pass rusher off the edge.
I agree.
I think Cameron Hayward is one of the better and one of the more underrated defensive tackles in the league.
Definitely agree.
I really like this group of linebackers with Devin Bush and Malik Reed.
Devin
And
Bush,
Miles Jack.
not great.
He reminds me of Devin White in so many ways. I know Bush has
Not
had, I
anymore.
think, a few concussion and injury issues.
I don't think he's Devin White like anymore. He was in college, but after that ACL, he is slow.
Yeah, and that was his calling card, was fast and physical.
Yeah.
And he was every bit as fast as Devin White, and he was smaller than White, so it wasn't as impressive. But he was every bit as physical as Devin White. And when you're smaller and fast and physical, and you are not always built to last in the NFL, and that may be the fate of Devin Bush.
Yeah, unfortunately, because he was fun coming out of Michigan. I was a big fan of his. But yeah, it's really just, honestly, I view this defense as really Cameron Hayward and Alex Highsmith right now. Without TJ Watt, this is a really depleted unit, and then add on all the injuries that have kind of happened to them in the last week or so. It's a really unfortunate circumstance for the Steelers defense.
Yeah, you hate to see it from a competitive standpoint because, as a fan, you want to see Minkah Fitzpatrick versus Mike Evans on a play.
Right,
You want to
right.
see TJ Watt, who is maybe the second best defensive player in the NFL, only behind Aaron Donald.
Right.
And the only one who I think is even close to challenging him in is Myles Garrett. I think
Yeah.
those two are tied for 2, and Donald is 1.
I agree.
But he's one of the most exciting players in football. And it's a bummer that we don't get to see him in this game. And, as a fan standpoint, I'm glad we don't have to stress on him. But just not seeing great players play is always a bummer.
It is tough, but it definitely makes the lives of the Buccaneers offensive line easier. No doubt about it. Donovan Smith doesn't have to worry about him. I would have liked to see him against Tristan Wirfs, just battle of the beasts. But like you said, it's a big weight off their shoulders because they don't have to really game plan for him. But like you said, Alex Highsmith, another a solid pass rusher. Can't let him go easily. Can't not think about him because he will make you pay if he can. But I'm not too worked up over what this matchup for the Bucs. This should be a win pretty solidly, I feel like.
I think the biggest thing that's going to stand in the way of the Bucs offense, aside from Cameron Hayward, is Byron Leftwich. And that's not a call to fire Leftwich on the spot, because I think he has the ability to adjust, and this whole offense is still finding himself, including Byron Leftwich, and that's okay right now. It's not okay come playoff time, but right now in week 6, it's okay to tinker, especially against an inferior team.
I do want to say, in the way you said find itself, I disagree that that's okay at this point. Mainly because all the parts of the offense that Byron Leftwich can control, which is, he controls all of it, but the ball and who it goes to has been largely the same for his entire tenure in Tampa Bay. I don't think there should be any more feeling out period, especially when we're seeing the offense that we know can be elite and electric start slow and fail to score in the red zone. I think it's pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty, honestly, stupid. That's not the word I was looking for, but it's dumb. How can you not succeed with this offense? I don't understand. It's very, very frustrating and very just bewildering, because you're like, what is going on? Throw the ball to Mike Evans. Don't let Leonard Fournette run it on 2nd and 14. I don't get it. I don't think there should be these hiccups anymore after all this time together. And the fact that there is kind of worrying to me. It was worrying to me last year. But every week I feel like we're saying this needs to be a wake-up game for Byron Leftwich. This needs to be a game that he can finally open the playbook, and it never is. We saw it in glimpses against the Falcons, and then he took it away. He was like, nope, we're up 21. I'm stopping. No, keep it going. We need it all game, every game. You can't just say, all right, we're going to hand the ball, 1st and 10, hand the ball off. Oh, 2nd and 9, we're going to throw an out route. Oh, incomplete, 3rd and 10. That sucks, because then they can just tee up for a pass. Drop 8, I don't know, rush 3. It's not a good setup for this offense, and it just needs to stop. It needs to stop, because as a fan, I'm getting tired of it. As a person looking objectively as a media member, it's confusing and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So
this leads me back to a question I always had with this regime. How much was Bruce Arians involved with the offense? Even after he said Byron Leftwich is the guy, he's the play caller. Yeah. Bruce Arians was still involved in that process of game planning and all of those kind of things. So it really leads me to question even more now, how involved was Bruce with all that versus how much is Byron still kind of feeling things out as, he's running the show unquestionably now.
Yeah.
There's no offensive mind in that room because all the top coaches, defensive guys, Todd Bowles, Larry Foote, the guys with all the experience are defensive. So Byron has no one to lean on, no one to turn to. How much is this him trying to figure out his identity as a offensive mind versus collaborating with Arians?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for the longest time, whenever you hear Bruce Arians' name, you immediately think of high octane, throwing the ball a million times a game. You're like, oh yeah, that's what that is. And when he hired Leftwich as his OC in Tampa, everyone's like, oh, it makes sense. He's been under him forever. He's been doing a great job. He's just going to carry on the Leftwich or the Arians offense. And that didn't really happen. I mean, you see glimpses of it again, like the passing concepts, all downfield stuff, but they opt to hand the ball off and run this really archaic style of football that I don't think is complementary for the offense. My friend, big on complementary football. Every time we do something that just doesn't make sense, he's like, we're not playing complementary football. And I'm like, I know. And it just doesn't make sense to me. But I would love to see a change. But I'm not going to say it's going to happen until I actually see it. So.
Sure. Byron Leftwich, I think, has everything to prove. After he was kind of on top of the world this past offseason, getting head coaching interviews, and it felt like he was this close to getting the Jaguars job. He has to really show that he's the man right now.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why he's getting head coaching jobs. I mean, he's the offensive coordinator for one of the best offenses in the league. But I think if you were to go around and ask a Bucs fan that watches every game, they wouldn't be able to tell you why he's getting head coaching jobs, because there's been a lot of letdown from the offensive side of the ball, especially in the last 2 years. I think last year was not good in terms of how this offense was trending, and then this year it's just kind of more of that. So I don't know. I'm not pleased with it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes on Sunday.
Yeah. The last thing Byron Leftwich wants to turn into is Nathaniel Hackett, where he was a great offensive coordinator under an offensive-minded coach and a great quarterback, and then he got off on his own, and oh, look, he's as terrible as people may have feared.
It is very clear Hackett did nothing in Green Bay. And it is very clear he was hired as an Aaron Rodgers bait, and it didn't pay off. So,
who was that guy from Denver who was the same way? He was the coordinator for Peyton Manning in Denver, and then he got a job at the Bears.
Gase?
Gase. Oh, my gosh, he was so bad.
Gase. And then he got
same thing, though.
Dolphins also, which doesn't make sense. Was it the Dolphins?
I think so.
And then the Jets. He got like a lot, didn't he?
I think it was Bears, Dolphins.
No, it was Dolphins, Jets, because you're thinking of Matt Nagy for the Bears.
I thought Gase was in Chicago. Am I thinking of Nagy? So. Yeah.
You might be thinking Matt Nagy then.
Oh, I think Gase was an offensive coordinator in. I'm going to Google it.
Let's see.
This is bad content.
I don't care, man. We're looking it up live on the pod. Here we go. Denver Broncos offensive coordinator from 2013 to 2014. He was Bears offensive coordinator in 2015. And then Miami's head coach, and then the Jets head coach.
So we're all right. He took
So we're
stops
all
in all
correct.
3 places.
Yep.
And he was bad in all 3 places.
He was bad. You're right. You are correct.
So we certainly don't want Byron Leftwich to go down that path. We want the best for him because if he's good, then it's good for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're hoping the flashes of what we saw this past week, that second and third quarter, that was good. That's sustainable. There's every reason to believe that we can do that any given time. You would think someone as smart as Byron Leftwich, who's been around the game for much longer than us, would be able to see the same thing.
I agree with that sentiment. Hope I see it. That's what I'll leave it at. Anything else you want to touch on from the upcoming Steelers game?
Let's move right into bold predictions.
Let's do it. All right. I'll start. Kenny Pickett does not get 100 yards passing.
Oh, that would be brutal after scoring 3 last week.
Yep.
But that is pretty bold because he threw for over 300, I think.
Yeah, I think this. I think it's going to be shut down. I expect it to be.
Yeah, I didn't watch that game, but I would assume 90% of it felt like garbage time. So
probably
that 300 is probably misleading.
Yep.
All right, my bold prediction this week: Vita Vea, 2 sacks.
Love it.
He's going to eat versus this line.
That's definitely something I would not have gone with. Just because Vita, not the typical sack merchant, but I love it. I would love to see a big Vita game. I'm sticking with my guns as always. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, 2 sacks, always until it happens. Just speak it into existence because it's coming. It was almost happened last week. It was so close. And I was like, oh, please, but it's going to happen one of these days, and I'm going to be so happy. But again, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, 2 sacks.
All right, next one for me. I'm going to go with Levante David, pick 6.
Oh, I love it. I like that one a lot. I'm a big fan. Levante looking really good this season after a bit of a down year last year. Just one of the best Buccaneers defenders ever. No doubt about it. Let's see. This was my last one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think here. Offensive or defensive? I'm going to go offensive. I think Mike Evans is going to have 120 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, let me tell you why that would be a dream come true. Mike Evans is 4 touchdowns away from 82 touchdowns. You know who has 81 touchdowns, who he could tie and pass next week if he gets 2 touchdowns this week?
Tell him.
Steve Smith. You know who the Bucs play next week? Carolina Panthers. There's nothing I would like more than to watch Mike Evans pass Steve Smith on the all-time touchdown records.
In Carolina.
Yes, that is the dream.
That would be great. That would be awesome. Just
Ugh.
keep padding that Hall of Fame resume, Mike. Do what you got to do, man.
Oh, yeah.
Love Mike Evans.
And he would pass 2 Hall of Famers this game if he gets 2 touchdowns. So
best offensive player in Bucs history.
Yes. Really could go down as a top 10 wide receiver ever.
Okay.
All right. My last one, I'm going to stick with the defense.
Go for it.
Najee Harris held to 35 rushing yards or less.
Man, we are predicting the Steelers to do nothing offensively. Holy. I think I was probably a bit too harsh saying 100. That's hard.
Nope.
Like that. I'm not taking it back, but that's going to be hard to do.
It's going to be 135 yards total offense for Pittsburgh. That's what it is now between our predictions.
I apologize, Steelers fan. That's on me. That's my bad. But
we're sorry for nothing.
Hey, my dad's a Steelers fan. I got to call him and be like, hey, man, sorry. But we're expecting a defensive masterclass here, and it would be well welcomed. But score predictions, actually, before I close it out.
All right.
See, 135 yards total. JT, what's your score?
I'm going to say it's going to be, for the predictions we give, I'm going to say it's going to be a lot closer than those predictions indicate. I'm going to go 20-10 Bucs because, like you said, this offense has to show it. Leftwich has to prove it. Until he does, I'm going to continue to think that this offense is going to struggle. And if they get Fitzpatrick and some of their corners back, this is a decent enough defense to work and challenge the Bucs offense. So 20-10, if it was 13-10 in the fourth quarter, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think this is one where the Bucs should dominate and the defense will dominate, but it'll be closer than we want it to be.
I'm pretty similar to you. I'm going 24-7. Like you, pretty much really similar reasons to what you said, but I think the Steelers they'll get a either early or late touchdown, and the Bucs will kind of shut them down elsewhere. And then the Bucs offense, I think, will put up similar points to last week. So
if this injury report holds true, then yeah, I think the Bucs could very easily kind of run away with this one.
Oh, yeah.
And even if it doesn't, this Pittsburgh team is bad, and they're 1-4 for a reason. This could very easily be a blowout, but it's like you said, this offense has to prove it every week, and until they get that identity, which they're really lacking and kind of looking for right now, I can't predict them to just dominate a team.
That's fine. That's understandable. But that's going to do it for this rendition of the Creamsicle Chronicles podcast. As always, we are so happy you tuned in. JT and I love doing this. Come back next week. Tune into the live show. Catch us wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.